Hi, I'm Andrew Armstrong and welcome to the Back Office Teardown Lab. We have a project today. If you recall, a while back I ordered this pink Nintendo Game Boy, ordered intact mind you, and it arrived smashed up, and then the seller got really arsey about it and eventually got a refund off Royal Mail. I don't know really what his game was. He sort of accused me of breaking it, and he wouldn't even collect the return because eBay makes him have to do a return automatically, and that's what we did. And he didn't bother collecting it, so I just said, okay, I'll have that. And then I decided I'll do a project on it. So before I just go into that, it was working though. I remember I did test it. It was just that damaged screen hinge. So I recently saw this on, I think it was Amazon. It was Amazon. And I thought that's just the ticket, because sometimes DS fat shells are hard to come by. So when I see one at a reasonable price, I just pick it up. And that's what this is. So I'm going to hopefully repair this, and it'll sport a lovely new colour. You can see it's in Mario Red. I think that's fair to call it. So you get a replacement front screen, which I'm going to put on the side because we don't want to scratch that. It looks like you get the hinge block, which is it's kind of painted, or is it even 3D printed? No, it's painted hinge block. And all the innards, start button, and your little Nintendo sticker, and your, I don't know what that was for, something. We'll figure that one out. Your screws, so that's a pretty good kit. Got the screws as well. Your back plate, and there's nothing we want to transfer from that because it's knackered, but I do like that it actually also has the pen. I mean, that's pretty complete, to be fair. A brand new, oh no, that was one I just took off. Put that on the side. And then let's have a look at the top. Nice. Nice. It's a good colour though, isn't it? I think that works. Absolutely. You can't really be any worse than that. It's been a long time since I did a reshell, so it'd be interesting to try that. Something I just will see if they've got. They sometimes come with a, yeah, look, there you go, a red Nintendo logo right there for the front of the case. So good, we're all set. So first things first, we just, oh my gosh, try not to damage any of the ribbon, because once you damage that, you might as well give up. So first things first though, we're going to just dismantle this one. Regular Phillips screwdriver is okay for that. I think the battery is okay. I mean, it might not be the best of batteries, but in fact I know it's not the best of batteries because it's not holding its charge. But it's enough to test. We'll pop that out. Once we get all this working, I'll just get a new battery for it. But it's kind of one of those things. I don't want too many spare sort of lithium batteries lying around because I had quite a collection of them. And they just go into waste. They just sit there and then you lose the battery, and then when you come to need the battery, you'll just order a new one again anyway. So they're quite common right now. And what I can hear as I'm, oh my gosh, this is crunching up. As I'm unscrewing it, all I hear is crunching sounds. So we'll investigate what happens. You know, to be fair, okay, there's two issues. The vendor, how they shipped this was just ridiculous. It was just wrapped in a bit of bubble wrap, right? So it probably just got trod on. But to be fair, I think these DSs have definitely some issue with the plastics, because it's not the first time I've had one break. They really, for an item that's supposed to be kid-proof, they are really starting to break a lot. I suspect while we're dismantling this one, this one will come apart even more. And it's not like the Nintendo Game Boy, you know, the original Game Boy. Those are really good. They're still hardy. They're still working well. There's not a single problem with that. There's some issue with these, and it's not related to even the GBA generation. The GBA generation is still good. So let's take the back cover off now. Before we put that aside, and you can see it's cut the it's snapped off the plastic tangs on the back of the pink case. That's fine. Just going to hold this up because I just want to see if there's anything we need to transfer. So far, so good. I mean, this one's got a little bit of black insulation on there over that piece, and if it's really important, I don't think it is, but if it is really important, I'll add my own piece right now, just because I happen to have a roll of red. And it'll be the same colour as our Mario themed case. Makes me wonder though if you could actually 3D print your own case if you really wanted to. I suspect you could. So that's not very pretty though. Didn't do it in a very pretty way, but that's fine because we're just going to run the blade just like that. Peel that off. So there's my bit of insulation, for better or for worse. We'll put those aside for now. So the shoulder buttons, yeah, the new kit comes with those, so we'll just take these out. There is a spring in the shoulder buttons. May or may not be in your kit. I'm just going to tip this out now. I think we're to the point where we're going to want to see what's in here properly. I'm always a bit hesitant though, because I don't want to lose springs. Those are our little feet, different stickers. I'll put those by our screen. That's our little top hinge thing, and although it is painted, I think they've done a pretty good job. I think that's going to look fine. And I do like they've got the red coloured rubber bumpers for the screw covers for the top lid as well. And I did see a spring trying to escape. They've got the 2 springs, and you've got your A and B button there. D-pad, start, stop, everything is here in the kit, so we'll just keep going. We'll race ahead now. The reason I wanted to check though is just to see if we're going to be extra cautious when we're removing these, because if we lose the springs on here and we need them, we'll be in trouble. Just pop those out. Okay, we can go in a bit closer now, can't we? I can't remember whether or not we need to do it, but I'm going to just pop these ribbons out, just on the likelihood that when you take this main board off, you're going to need to get in there. Let's call it intuition. And we've got the wireless antenna we need to remove. Be a bit gentle with that. I think it's a touch fragile. We'll just get something under the edge. If you've got a little flat blade screwdriver, I think that would be the best thing. Probably the least good thing would be a scalpel blade, so but it worked. And then just moving on, look at that. Underneath that big ribbon there's these 2 teeny ones. Again, be very careful, and if you've got a flat blade screwdriver you want to get it in and just pull those. See them right there? There's 2 little tabs either side. Just pull them out, pull them back, pull them back, pull them back. And you see that ribbon cable actually popped out on its own accord. That's the locking mechanism. If you've got some good quality tweezers, you can just get in there and just very gently give them a little pull. Little wiggle pull. I would suspect, oh, that one looks like I might have damaged that one. That's going to be fun, be alright. I suspect though, you don't want to try to do that with your hands. I think you could damage them with your hands. So we've got 3 screws here. So I'm making a note, mental note, where these screws are as I'm putting them into the little pot next to me. Let's just give that, just giving it a gentle wiggle. Ah, there's one more screw. See, yeah, it always is. If you ever work on cars or motorbikes, it's like that. There's always one screw left in your gearbox. Just slide that up. And that's that nice main board out, and it's looking pretty clean. It doesn't need any work, it's just looking fine. So I'm going to put that aside, because as soon as I transfer these over, I don't think there's anything stopping us really from kind of assembling this. Let's just see what we've got though. Let's see. I like to retain the originals in most cases. Let's see if there's any. The original's looking good, so I'll keep the original on that one. So I'm going to put that just there. Just a bit of dust on there, blow it out. Yep, I think I'll keep that there. So I end up with so many weird spares like this, because it's, where did that come from? Something you didn't use. So you can see here, of course, now it's time to sort of populate the buttons. And then there's an interesting part here. You'll notice here there's a plastic light guide, and that's not present here. So it does make sense to transfer that. So that's something we definitely will transfer. Let's see, hopefully it's not glued in. It's not glued in, let's just pop that in. As we go through the box, we'll see there is actually one in there. That's really good. That's pretty amazing, actually. They've been really thorough now. I wonder if it's because all of these are really starting to die. We're really starting to lose the ability to keep these machines going. So you've got your power button, we'll just poke that through. Now when you poke through your buttons, and this seems to be a pretty good kit. I've had kits that are less good, and the buttons have not fitted well. Now notice here, for example, there's a tiny bit of swarf here that I'm just going to trim very gently. But when I look at the actual Nintendo piece, it's actually got that too. So it's hilarious, isn't it? I don't know. I don't know if I need to clean this up. It's almost like you could take an original DS and actually improve it slightly, improve the tolerance as you go along. So we pop that through there. We've got our D-pad. It doesn't look like it's got any particular way, but like everything, I'm just going to trim any extra material, because the last thing you want is to put it all together and then have it mess up. And actually that was directional. I did actually, it does have a little keyway in it, and I managed to just by fluke get the keyway in the right place. So now you've got the X and the Y. So that's the Y will be going in there. And that is stiff. So that's a button that's definitely worth making sure it's trimmed down. I'm just trimming that off the camera. Yep, come on. Really stiff actually, look. It's almost grinding on that. Let's just check the original here. See how they float? Yes, they're like floaty lights. That one's not too good. Now before I go any further at all, let's do a test. Take the original button out of your first unit, pop it in your replacement case, and see if it's still stiff. It is still stiff, which means the hole on here needs to be slightly sanded out. I'm going to do it from the back because it might just help reduce the burrs on the job. I'm just going to give it a little twist. And the finer the grade, the better. So this is quite a heavy grade. I do have finer, so I can just work my way down. So I'm just going to give it one twist in each of those. Try not to get it to touch the face, because if it touches the face it might scratch it. And then we'll try that particular button we had, which was the Y. Although this is a bit dusty, it's good to go and rinse it, just wipe it down with an alcohol rag. Ah! You can see that's kind of all it took. Nice and gentle. So let me wipe this down and we'll put all the buttons in. The buttons are in. Next stage, I'm just going to poke these through so that they'll stay in, hopefully not try to escape. Just make sure it's sitting nice and flat all the way around. Just do the same for the D-pad, give it a little wipe. And you can see there's a little pin on the center of the D-pad that's supposed to stick through the center of this. Just make sure that lines up nicely. You can't really get it wrong because it's made for factory line production, so people don't have too much time to think on the factory line. Now let's see how we're going to get this screen out and how it interacts with the screen below. So definitely the ribbon is coming across, but I wonder if it's actually the top screen is actually just stuck there. So look, I'll show you what I mean. You can see there's this piece of material. It looks like this is connected to the bottom screen, but I think it might not be. Yeah, I suspect. I'm going to be very cautious. It's up to you how you want to handle this. I'm going to cut the foam using my precise tools. So I can just cut that piece out. It's obviously stuck a bit though. Ooh. Just gonna check it here underneath. It is stuck. So please be cautious. You don't want to rip the ribbon. I think if I just use the back of a knife. Yeah, you could possibly just use the back of a knife or just gentle. A little bit of gentle force on it. Just to peel it. It's definitely something you want to do on a warm day. You could probably put this in a warm place. Last bit, last bit. Oh, tell you what, that was worrying. At any moment you could slip and kill that. Right, so I think now that's everything from the bottom screen ready to take out. And there we go, look at that. So I do notice that the replacement doesn't have the little dust thing, the thing that's up the dust, and the screen and the digitizer have come off in one piece, which is pretty good. So you can just give that a wipe. I'm not going to give it. I'm just giving it a wipe off the edge of the screen because I don't want any of the wipings to go on there. You can imagine that this was obviously a DS that was heavily used by a young girl, potentially. I mean, I don't know if many boys go for the pink colour. Just giving it, just blowing on it basically. Your hot breath clean. Be nice to go for perfect, but I think that's good enough for our needs. Now when you see that you've got this gasket, we can do two things. I do have gasket material on a roll of that thickness, which is kind of fiddly, but doable. But I'm going to see if we can try to get it off, because that's more likely that you'll at home will want to do. And I'm genuinely trying here. Let's take more care. I suspect you can do it. I'm using tweezers. Ah, oh, broke it there. I think if I can get it in my fingers it'll be more sensitive. Yeah. No. You might try harder than me to get that off. In the meantime though, I'm going to get some new stuff for a roll. And it's basically made by your usual manufacturers. I think it's like a 3M product. Comes on a roll like this. And what they've done, apparently, it's basically sliced it. If you can imagine, you've taken a roll of this stuff and you slice it down. That's how you get this one. It just comes off like that. Very fine stuff, isn't it? Very fine. And you just stick it on the screen. Just onto the last piece, and I'll show you how I'm applying this. So I've just cut off the roll, this little sliver. I'm just positioning it where I want it. Again, it's a little bit fiddly. So what you might find, like there, it's actually stuck to my hand, so it sort of jumped off there. But as I was saying, it's a little bit fiddly. Just try to get it pretty straight. I think it's fine. I'm not sure how much it serves as a dust seal or as a spacer, but that's looking pretty good. And then I just get in with my little knife. Trim that off right there. So I think that's fine. Let's do a test fit. This is actually a white layer that you can remove, but I don't want to do that. I don't think it's necessary for my use. And the problem is when you try to take that layer off, it might pull it up off the plastic. So pop that in like so. Nice, so that's a good fit. Now, I hear this is challenging, but it can be more challenging apparently on the newer models, where it's apparently totally impossible to get into the screen. So I don't know what Nintendo have done on those models. Perhaps they've gone the Apple route and applied all sorts of adhesives. Now, just studying this, we just need to make sure it's got those twists, don't we? There is a screw in there. Let's remove the screw. Aha, so that's screwing that cover on. Hopefully we won't forget to put the cover back on. Just fishing that through. You can see I've gone quiet now, concentrating. You do not want to break a flexi, ever. There's no circumstance where it's a positive outcome to break a flexi. I just want to see if you can dogleg this around. Yeah, you flatten it out and you dogleg it right around. So you can see that's the way when you go to put it back on again. We'll try to leave that as is, just not disturb anything if we can help it. Makes me wonder now, is this a good time to be putting the new screen into the replacement case so that we don't get any ingress of dust? Let's worry about that after we've dismantled this one and look inside. That's the one problem when you do these jobs, is preventing dust from getting in. And I have to admit, I've not always been successful. And when I say not always been successful, I think there's always one somewhere that I'll notice. But once you get a game up and running, a couple of weeks later, not a problem. You really don't notice it. If you show other people, they don't notice it. So you can be quite a perfectionist probably to your own handiwork sometimes. So let's get that out. I think we're going to save this. I'm really pleased. Who doesn't need another DS in their collection? Just going to shake off any rubbish. Plenty of it here. I'm trying to remember though, if there's anything worth saving on these shells. I don't think so. You can see how crispy and crumbly it is. So that's all that has to be transferred into the new one. So let's get the new one ready. And what I'm going to do, a little bit different than last time, I'm going to position the new one on top of the packet that the old one came in so that we don't scratch anything. Because we weren't really trying with the old one, we don't care. The new one, definitely care. It's looking pretty similar. So that was my quandary about the screen. So I think we're going to loosen all this, but at the point we're about to transfer the screen, we'll put the new screen in this red one. So we'll undo this PCB. See what lurks beneath. Oh, it's the antennas. So that's the antenna board. And it's connected to the other side and connected through this ribbon. So let's not go too crazy with that. A lot of things have to move at once. And if we get them wrong, we won't be able to route them nicely when we put everything back. So even the screen's connected to that. So I'm going to just take the screen off there by flipping those catches that we, very similar way we did earlier. Oh, and there's two. I wonder if we can just, let's see if we can do it all in one go. That's my gut feeling. I think that's how you get dust. But I think it's totally possible to do that. I'm going to try it. Let's go for it. The speakers look like they're pretty much self-contained. Good. If you ever worry about the fit of these, if they seem a bit loose or rattly, probably no harm putting a bit of glue. And in fact, before I even worry about those, let's get this new screen. Looks like it's in two layers. So there is actually a laser cut piece here. So I think maybe you can do the edge first and then pull the center bit off. I'll try that. If I get that wrong, you'll see that will be a very dusty manoeuvre. Oh, it's okay. It has a kind of a thing. As you can see, it's still got a protector on it. Now, let's see if we can get this pretty much centered. Yeah, that's okay. Just work to get it centered because the hole is a little bit generous. I think that's fine. And we can pop that white piece off just right at the last second, as soon as we're ready to transfer. Which I think is coming up pretty close. Pop our speakers back in and we're good to go. Just gonna shake my hands off so you don't get any dust. Let's see how this is. Ooh. Did you see that? That was the plastic of the screen just disintegrating. It feels to me that it might be actually stuck. Look at that. It's just crispy. My gosh. I want to be careful, otherwise we'll end up having to pick bits of screen off everything. There we go. And like the lower screen, there is a rubber but plastic kind of gasket on there. There is a bit of dust in there, so before we do anything, I'm just gonna glance over it with a little bit of a dust cloth. Oh, it's got a whole layer of dust. It's a very fine layer across the whole screen. If you've got one of those mobile phone screen protector kits, that could be handy because they come with a little sticker. Okay, I'm not seeing one piece on that right now. That's good. That's real good. I'm going to hold it upside down. No dust. We don't want your dust here. Let's see if we can get this off. Okay. Trying to remember what it was I was doing where I ended up dropping it like 14 times. So, oh, it was the Game Boy. If you saw the video with the blue Game Boy, I ended up just somehow dropping the bloody thing over and over and over again, as if I was trying to ruin it. It happens. What can I say? It definitely happens. Let's pop our screws back in now. I think we're ready to close this up. I wish I paid more attention though to the way these wires were routed here. I'll have to work that out as we go along. Come on, something want to go. There you go. Come on now. When you've done with the other assembly, oh, these screws not want to go in. When you've done with the other screen though, remember there are hinge components which are on here we will have to deal with. So don't chuck anything away before you're totally done. Now, this is where you might want to use the screws that come with it because they may well be shorter for that. Let's check. Yeah, probably about the same. Maybe a bit more of aggressive self-tapper though. It's effectively biting in as you go along, it's tapping, so you'll probably need a better screwdriver than I'm using. And there, it's not fitting. There's a slight difference here, and the reason being it's not expecting this edge, so I'm just going to trim a bit of this plastic. That was easy. And away we go. Flip it over, have a quick look. Oh, my word, I did it again. I went through too hard. Oh well. Despite my bumps on the face here that I'm going to just choose to ignore, because frankly, 2 bumps I can live with compared to a totally smashed pink Game Boy, I'm going to continue now to look at the hinge parts I talked about a moment ago. Probably would have been better to do that possibly before we populated this, but let's just turn it around again off camera so all the bits fall out. So you've got a little piece here that is pretty much keyed. It looks like it only goes in one way there, just to show you. And these are effectively the hinge springs. They provide friction when you open it and shut it. But it makes sense for us to try to figure out how it works because this was broken originally, so we didn't actually have to use it. So you can see that just twists like that. So we've got to decide, are we going to leave it in its closed position or its open position? I think open, so I'm going to turn this up so as if your DS is open at 90 degrees. Let's see if we can just get that out. So I'm just looking at this one, how that's done, and then I want to turn. I think this one is already open, but I'm going to have a go. Be gentle with whatever you use, definitely be gentle, because if it makes a mark, you're going to be in big trouble, I promise you. It seems just about doable by hand actually if you need to. So I think those are good, so I'm just going to pop those out. Just like so. I'm going to put them on the deck. Ready. So hopefully we'll figure that out as we go along. So let's root through. Well, I think that's actually, if that's the top screen more or less done, we can probably consider putting the screws on the back cover. And again, I'm really cautious now how tight we're going to do these. Try not to overcook them is all I can say. Right, if you recall, these 2 pieces obviously interlock, right? And you need these hinges. I think these hinges push through from inside. So before I go any further, I think it makes sense to attach the screen halves. I dismantled it because I thought the screen might be a bit easier to see how we do all this. So let's begin. We have a fatter one here, which would be the left hand side of the screen, which was the long one. That's fine, I get that. So how I feel this works is that you push these through from the inside, and then once it's aligned you'll push the last bit through so it just goes ba-chink and it will just go through. So the tricky part with this is it's different types of quality of machining. I think what we need to do, remember what I showed you earlier? You kind of want to scratch that because we want to get this totally even. I'll show you what I mean. This has got 2 flat edges. Make sure these flat edges line up with the, imagine there's a flat edge there and there, with those keyways not sticking out. Just make sure if it's aligned it goes in like that, and then we're going to finally put that in. It would be so easy to just say, to finish the project, just, you know, do everything you did in reverse. But it's such a cop-out, isn't it? It's a cheat. It's almost like, here's one I made earlier. Let's get that through. So we've got our wire. We've got our gubbins. My gosh, it's hard to show you this. It's really hard. Now before we do anything, let's just clip this in. There's a lot of pieces that are going to fall out once I do this. So saying that, it's just the speaker. Let's keep that aside. It's fine. So that we can have a really good look at what's going on. So you can see that's fitting in like that. That's the idea of it. I'm going to see what angle that is. That's a really good view. You really get to see how that's going on, and hopefully that one pushed in a bit. That one pushed in a bit. These are almost at the right angle, but not quite. I don't know. Oh, it still went though. Let's try a bit more. Come on. Come on, old fella. Oh, it's getting there. Yes! Success. That one went right home. This one, I think, probably will, if it isn't already. It's just shorter, isn't it? There you go. Excellent. So you can see the wires there, how that's going on. Now before you put the back on, of course, of this screen, you're going to need to get that little doohickey in there too. So I just put the screws on. It's really good actually. The detent is really clicky, like click click, really firm compared to the well, I guess even compared to the original it's a bit firm. So we have now our main board that we want to pop back in. Just checking all those buttons to make sure nothing's disturbed as part of that process. It'd be really easy to disturb stuff. Just to check. Nothing on the microphone there. It's going to go in the hole nicely. Another quick blow. Buff. Gust of air. If you've got one of those things for cleaning camera lenses, it's like a little brush with a bulb that you puff. A little puff of air. You could use one of those. There's all our things. There we go. We've got our little ribbon connectors popping through. We just got to make sure this one at the top is not messed up. I think that's must be kind of how it goes. Before we screw the board down there, let's just clip that on. Gives us some leeway with that. Little Wi-Fi wire getting in the way. It's funny looking at the DS card slot, isn't it? It's like a massive SD card slot if you've ever worked with one of those. Nice, that's in. So that's pretty happy, I think. Nothing's catching. We'll work on this side now. Now we'll start with that one that looked like I broke it a bit. I'm taking a lot of care now. You can see I'm a little bit cautious now. Click. Whew. Nice. What I'll do is I'll compare it to this other side when it's in. Definitely doesn't want to go in any further than that, so I think that's about right. It looks like there's a marking. You see a white line on the PCB right there? See that white line? I think that just has to line up with the end of the insulated part. We'll get that last one in. Again, just pull that through. If you've got tweezers, it'll be helpful because you want to make sure that's all the way home. And you can see again, there's a white line there that lines up with that part. So that's really handy. Thank you, whoever designed this thing. That's quite good. Ooh, and that feels to me like it's time to put in our 4 screws. And I'm counting the screws as we go along, actually. So if through each part of the procedure you end up with a wrong amount of screws, then that could be your problem. Now remember, when these things blow, sometimes they have fuses. Just so happens there is the F2 fuse right there. So if you've got a unit that you've plugged in and it doesn't seem to be charging, that's where I'd advise you look first. Now we've seen what happens when you over crank the screws. I'm always in danger of doing that, so I'm going to be really gentle and try to pay way more attention when I dismantle one of these to see how much torque you need. So I don't want to mark the front, so you don't want to drive the screw till the PCB's dying, basically. It's not needed. Just going to try that now. Looks like another mil. Probably about it. Don't overdo it. Do as I say, don't do as I do. That one's okay. I think that one's got a good bit of meat to go into. I think that'll be fine. And then just the last one at the slot. can't see that one, so that doesn't matter. Go nuts. Good. I think we're there. Just the shoulder buttons, the L and the R. I'm just doing a test fit, by the way. Hang on, is this the R? How are you holding this? Oh, that's the R for sure. Why isn't that fitting? Ah, because it goes in like that. I'm going to get the old springs. Pop them over that little hole. It's going to be tricky. This is where you really will want some tweezers, I think. If you can get some. Borrow some. Even the ones for doing your eyelashes or something could be of use. Yeah, I've done it, but I'm not sure I'm digging it. That's not where the spring goes. So the spring clearly goes on that long piece. You probably don't need the tweezers then, although they might help. Small knife. There. So yeah, it's there, it's clicking. Right, I'm going to do everything else now. You can see that the Nintendo DS on the left is a lot better than how it started on the right. We'll just chuck that over there. And although it has the wire, because it's not holding too much charge, we'll need to get a new battery for it. And there's hardly any dust on the screen, but there's no dust under the screen. That's the important thing. Let me pop off my lights here so you can have hopefully a slightly better look. All that remains to do, of course, is to remove that screen protector on the top, but I'm going to wait, because I'm going to let the proud owner of this do that themselves. But as you can see, everything just works as expected. Volume, control, sound. You can even play a bit of Picto Chat if we want. So I think you'll agree that's definitely an improvement. The nice Nintendo logo in red looks pretty sweet, doesn't it, right there? Even the sticker actually goes on really nicely, and it looks just totally legit. I mean, in every single way, it's a mod you would want to do. Absolutely. I think I'd probably want to do it even if I just had a normal, boring, fat silver one that had a little bit of, that looked a bit age-worn. So if you're considering it, have a go. The only thing I would say to avoid, of course, though, is over-tightening those screws. I'd have been far better off putting a little shim or some washers in there and just stopping that happening. But again, I'm not going to notice that when I'm playing Zelda. Hope that's been of some use to you. Please like, share, subscribe. Come chat to me on my Discord and as ever. Thanks for watching.